Good afternoon once again, beautiful people of the great southern land and beautiful people of the world. It is Lucas and Jupiter and Pharaoh and the chickens broadcasting live from the Ark Sanctuary. Got an interesting video, this one. I spent all day yesterday and a bit of the night before, so probably about 14 hours just going through this information and just following this rabbit hole, which I'm going to share with you, and I look forward to some feedback. I haven't, I sort of read through all the information last night and yesterday, and I spent like 14 hours, I said, but I haven't gone through it again today, and I can't really be bothered writing it all down and putting it in nice point form so I can deliver a short, succinct message. So it's going to go for a little bit longer. This video is more for the scientific people who are questioning what's going on, who are looking for answers, the doctors and whatnot, and everyone else as well. May shed some light. It's funny, I was watching someone's video earlier, and she was talking about how people don't really put too much care or effort into things they're doing these days, like, people providing services or trades or whatever. And I was kind of thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that's because, like, most people are getting rewarded with money, right? So there's no emotional reward for these people. There's no intellectual stimulation or emotional gratification. It's just an exchange of money, right? And for most people, that money's already spent, so they're just paying off a mortgage. So most people are just going through the motions to do their jobs so they can pay off the death pledges that they've already got themselves into. And I think that's why a lot of people aren't really keen on, putting much care or pride in their work or anything like that, because they're not getting anything reward. And most people in today's society are like, in the West especially, can come across quite ungrateful, and they think because they're paying someone for something that they shouldn't have to bother to make any emotional connection or show any gratitude or anything like that. It's like, oh, well, I'm paying you, so you'll do the job. And it's like, well, you're kind of making that person feel like more of a slave than they already feel like. So no wonder they're not going to give you anything good. But when people like reciprocate and they see people providing services, whether it's a meal or they're building you a house or whatever it is, irrespective of whether you're paying them monetarily, it's always better to see them for the human being they are, or the man and woman they are, and treat them accordingly as you would like to be treated, and build that relationship and that rapport, even if it's only for the time of the transaction. Like, you just treat people like human beings instead of like objects, yeah? And, if there's a reciprocity and a bit of a energy exchange above and beyond that monetary sort of thing that allows them to pay off the debt they're already in, then they're going to want to serve you a lot better. They're going to want to put some pride. If you make them feel a bit of pride about the work, they're going to want to put some pride in it, and they will give you more effort. And watch how their face lights up and their spirit lights up, and so for that, like, it goes both ways, yeah. So what people are receiving is basically what they're putting out, right? How I see it. I mean, I don't really receive much, but I put out a lot. I don't know. Anyway, I just thought I'd talk about that. And that's really why I'm doing this video the way I'm doing it. I haven't bothered to put all the information together properly to save people time, to make it more succinct and understandable. I haven't really bothered doing that because there's no incentive for me to do that. So as opposed to sitting on the information for the next few days and dwelling over putting it together, I just thought I'd do a video and put it all out there and put it together. So thanks, Kylie. Kylie's watching the last video. She liked it. Thank you, Kylie. Please share it if you liked it. And if you get anything out of any of these videos of mine or anyone else's, if that like props you up and it helps you and assists you in some way, like, share it, because other people will get that as well. And that's how we get the collective to be on the same level. and the same understanding, like, and we pull them out of that the ditch that they're in, yeah, or the darkness they're in. So the problem that society has, yeah, the fundamental problem is the lack of transparency, or the lack of information flow, the lack of flow of information, right? The information's kept in certain areas and it's not flowing down to everyone, and that's why there are such problems as we see today, right? So share information if it helps. But anyway, this one is about the Omicron. Yep. And I want to talk about the Omicron. I've seen a lot of people, they do the, you know, they change the letters around and it spells moronic or whatever. You know, what do you think Omicron means? And then what I'm going to go into the dictionary, right? That's where I like to look to source information, because as I always say, they are always giving you full disclosure, right? Some people think, oh, it's just a word. They make up all these words and they come from nowhere and they don't really mean anything. No, that's not true. That is not how it is. Right? When they tell you Omicron, they're giving you full disclosure. If you went and looked up what that word meant and the words that come from it and stem off it, it opens up a whole new vista. It illuminates, right? It brings light to the subject. G'day, Steve. So I'll just go, I've got the Macquarie Concise Dictionary here. This is one they use for courts in Australia. And this is the 7th edition, so I think it's the newest one. I'm just going to go to Omicron, right? And it takes a little bit of researching. Like sometimes we've got to flip the pages and look at other words and other abbreviations and other meanings for things to really get an understanding of what they're trying to tell us. Right? So if we look at Omicron, it's a noun, the 15th letter of the Greek alphabet. Greek Omicron, it also means lit, L-I-T, which also can mean intoxicated, or small o. And then it has C, capital C, small f, right? Full stop. So that's an abbreviation, right? And then it has omega, O-M-E-G-A, omega. If we look at omega, omega means the last in a series, right? So what they're saying is this Omicron thing is the last of the series that they've put together. They already know what they're doing, right? They've got a plan in place. So they're telling you that the Omicron is the last in that series of what they've got planned. So it would be the 3rd or the 4th shot, you know, the same as with the lethal injections, right? You get 3 or 4 shots. But the Omicron, so omega meaning the last in the series. And then we've got to look at some of the things that we don't understand. This is what I mean, we've got to turn a page, right? So we see there it says, I don't know if you can see that, CF. So what we do is we go to the abbreviation section and we go, well, what does CF mean? What's this CF? And there's a few different CFs, but capital C, small f, right? I don't know if anyone's heard of this. Maybe the scientists, if you're in science or anything like that, then you might have heard of this. It means Californium. Californ, I-U-M. Californium. Okay, well, what's Californium? What the hell is that? Right? So we have to look up Californium. This is where the research comes in, right? Californium, a synthetic radioactive metallic element. Symbol CF. Atomic number 98. And then bells start ringing, right? You go, a synthetic radioactive metallic element. Right, well, you know, we've been saying, or I've been saying in videos that you know, there's a lot of stuff around the G5 towers which emits microwaves or radiation, and we're coming into this nuclear age and they keep talking about nuclear war. And I keep saying, well, the jabs are the war, right? We're in the middle of the war, okay? So if the Omicron means the last of a series, and it also means a synthetic radioactive metallic substance or element, atomic number 98, we really have to look at what Californium means, right? What does it entail? So we look up Californium, and this is where I've printed out a few pages and done that. So I'm going to go through this stuff, and this is really for everybody, but for the people who are looking for answers, the scientists, the doctors who are seeing symptoms in people. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happening, but what I am saying is that from what I've read, what this stuff does or is capable of doing seems to align with what's happening. Okay? So we go to livescience.com. Facts about Californium. Please share it if you're watching. This is really important that people comprehend this, right? Because the next shot will be the last of the series, for them to achieve whatever goal they wanted to achieve with that series, right? Nuclear. Okay. Facts about Californium. Oh, and so going back to Californium, it says a synthetic radioactive metallic element. So then we go to radioactive. What does that mean, right? We sort of have an idea, but what does it actually mean by definition, right? Radioactive, possessing, relating to, or caused by radioactivity, right? What's radioactivity? The property of spontaneous disintegration possessed by certain elements due to changes in their atomic nuclei. The disintegration is accompanied by the emission of alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. Do those words sound familiar in what's been happening recently? They sound familiar to me, the alpha, the beta, the gamma. So the radioactivity is the disintegration and the emission of the alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. Right? Okay. See where this is going, right? This is a picture of what Californium looks like. That's a 1 millimeter ball of Californium. Now, I remember seeing a picture of something inside a needle or inside a thing that they were saying was from these jabs, and it sort of looks similar to that, like a metallic element. It's like a silvery white kind of looking element. Californium is a synthetic radioactive element not found in nature. It is an actinide. An actinide or actinoid equals actinium-like, which is akin to humanoid or android. All right, so it's an actinide. So it's, what is it, bringing about humanoids or androids or something? I don't know. Anyway, it's an actinoid, one of 15 radioactive metallic elements found at the bottom of the periodic table. The pure metal is silvery white, malleable, and so soft it can be easily sliced with a razor blade. Californium is moderately chemically reactive. It slowly tarnishes in air at room temperature. Small pieces or foils of the metal begin to oxidize, but not violently. Okay, so I'm going to talk, I'm going to put some information in there for the people who are scientifically minded and who are looking for answers, just in case it triggers something in them. All right, so there will be some information that might be a little bit over my head and over other people's heads, but I'm going to just put it in there anyway because that's what I feel to do. Okay, its atomic symbol on the periodic table is CF. CF, obviously, is where this research originated from when we looked at Omi-cron in the dictionary, right, the Macquarie Dictionary, and it said CF, yep, capital C, small f. So now we're at the atomic symbol for Californium. Phase at room temperature is solid. Okay. All Californium isotopes are radioactive. The isotope CF252 is a very strong neutron. Is a very strong neutron emitter. I don't know if that's got anything to do with shedding or whatnot. It's a very strong neutron emitter. And the emission is radioactive decay, yeah? The radioactive decay is the emissions of the alpha, beta, and gamma. Yep. Radiation. Okay? Meaning it has the unusual property of giving off neutrons when it breaks apart. CF252 is used in a variety of industries. Military applications. Well, I keep saying this is like we're in World War III, right? But it's bigger than World War III. It's like Satan versus creation, right? So military applications, okay. No worries. What else was I going to say there? Oh, that's right. Now, interestingly enough, Californium is made in a particle accelerator, right? It's made using uranium and smashing it with other particles or doing something to it over a prolonged period of time in a particle accelerator. Now, they've just constructed a particle accelerator in Melbourne at the Melbourne University, said to be finished by the end of 2021. Coincidentally, just as Omicron has, reared up its ugly head, right? So this particle accelerator is going to be finished and operational at the same time. Omicron has reared its ugly head, and Omicron meaning CF as one of the definitions, meaning Californium. Yep. So that's really interesting. Okay, going back to Californium. It was the sixth synthetic transuranium, which means beyond uranium, element in the actinide group to be discovered. Okay, so transuranium is an artificially created radioactive element having a higher atomic number than uranium. Okay? The discovery occurred when the chemists bombarded curium-242 with alpha particles, being helium atoms without electrons, in a 60-inch cyclotron particle accelerator. Okay? Remember that particle accelerator that's going to be ready at the end of 2021 at Melbourne University? Right. In 1958, Californium was isolated in larger quantities via prolonged 5-year neutron irradiation of plutonium-239. And we'll talk a little bit about plutonium a bit later. Okay? Uses. 1 microgram being 0.000001 grams of Californium-252 produces 170 million neutrons per minute, according to Jefferson Lab. The isotope has a variety of uses, including acting as a neutron emitter. So it's self-replicating. I think they're telling us. But I can't be sure about that. Here it gets really interesting, right? If you haven't been paying attention, now it gets really interesting. We're going to talk about a possibility of what's causing some of the effects that we're seeing, okay? The isotope Californium-252 is a target material for producing trans-Californium elements. For example, element 118 oganesson. The heaviest element was produced when scientists bombarded Californium with calcium ions. Calcium's really important in the functioning of the heart, in the functioning of the muscles. So the heaviest element was produced when scientists bombarded Californium with calcium. So maybe if you mix Californium with calcium, that might be why. And calcium, I'll read a bit out of calcium so I don't lessen its value. The calcium in the blood is important for a number of functions, including blood clotting, transmission of nerve impulses, muscle contraction, stability of cell membranes, and cell metabolism. The remaining 99% of the calcium in the body is contained in the bones, in the compound hydroxyapatite. Okay, so if the calcium in the blood is important for a number of functions, including blood clotting, and the mixing of Californium with calcium ions produces another element, being the heaviest element that they produced. Yep. So making things come together and bind and bond, like to clot maybe, I don't know. It's really interesting, right? Transmission of nerve impulses. Maybe that's got something to do, if the calcium is being affected by the binding of, if there's Californium in it, right? If the calcium is being affected, that is used in the transmission of nerve impulses, that may explain the Bell's palsy, right? The muscle contractions, that may explain the what appear to be seizures, right? The heart stopping, like you see people, and it's not like they're having a normal heart attack, right? You see these videos and it's like the heart literally just stops and they just drop, right? That's to do with the, that may be to do with the electromagnetic signals that the calcium is used to produce in the heart in order to pump the heart, right? When calcium binds to troponin, the troponin changes shape, removing tropomyosin from the binding sites. The sarcoplasmic reticulum stores calcium ions, which it releases when a muscle cell is stimulated. Maybe that's why they say don't exercise, right? And why exercise stimulates the clots. That one's more for the scientifically minded people. Okay, another one. The calcium that enters the heart cell through the calcium ion channel activates the ryanodine receptor to release enough calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to initiate heart muscle contraction. This is done by binding to another structure named troponin inside the heart muscle. So maybe if the Californium is binding with the calcium in the body, it's blocking it from being able to send the signal to initiate the heart muscle contraction, right? The heart is a pump that brings blood to every part of the body. Calcium plays important roles in the electrical activity and pumping function of the heart. Calcium particles enter the heart muscle cells during each heartbeat and contribute to the electrical signal that coordinates the heart's function. Calcium particles also bind to machinery within the cell that helps the cells squeeze together, contract, which makes the heart pump blood. In some diseases, the doors controlling the movement of calcium malfunction, leading to abnormal electrical signals, which may cause a group of heart diseases called heart rhythm disorders. I think we're seeing a lot of that as well. In addition, abnormal regulation of calcium may directly impair pumping function or relaxation of the heart. So the reason I've gone through all that calcium stuff information is because we read here that Californium is a target material for producing trans-Californium elements. For example, element 118, oganesson, the heaviest element, was produced when scientists bombarded Californium with calcium ions. Remember again, Californium comes from the definition of Omi-cron, right? That's what it means. Okay. Just give me a second here to work through my paperwork. Their research into how they bond with other elements is rewriting textbooks. This is for the scientifically minded people. This may trigger something or not in something they've seen. Specifically, Californium shares properties with the three previous actinide elements in the table: americium, curium, and berkelium, as well as the three actinides that come after it: einsteinium, fermium, and mendelevium. The actinides consist of 15 radioactive metallic elements from actinium, AC, atomic number 89, to lawrencium, atomic number 103 in the periodic table. The heavier metals are extremely unstable and do not occur naturally. We discovered that Californium represents a place in the series of actinide elements where chemistry fundamentally changes with respect to the earlier actinides. Right, bear with me if some of this is going over your head. Some of it goes over my head. Who knew? Californium is the heaviest element that has been produced in weighable amounts. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee is the only producer of CF252 for the US government. Right? Or it's virtually the only Californium producer in the Western world. And it is the major supplier worldwide. Right? We're going to talk a little bit about Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And this is from an article about Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Oak Ridge National Laboratory is part of a multi-lab effort within the Accelerating Therapeutics for Opportunities in Medicine, or ATOM, Consortium, a public-private partnership focused on dramatically reducing the time it takes to discover and deliver new medicines through the application of leading-edge technologies like machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now, where did I see it? Oak Ridge Laboratory is also advertising that it is working with the American government, or the US government, I believe, the Department of Energy, to come up with solutions for the COVID-19. Just around this time where the Omicron's coming out, I find it really interesting that, you know, the major supplier of Californium in the world is now coming, is now trying to get into the race of providing solutions for the COVID-19. I wonder if that solution will be Californium, because Californium is used in medical applications as well, like cervical cancer and also medical experiments, right? And we all remember when the health minister came out on TV last year or the year before and said, you know, Australians are part of the largest medical trial in history, right? And Dan Andrews put on his Facebook or his Instagram that 2020 to 2022 was going to be a massive clinical trial or human trial, and everyone was going to be part of it, right? We all remember that. Right, for the science nuts, electro depositions of Californium isotopes were successfully performed at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Electro deposition is a process that assembles solid materials from molecules, ions, or complexes in a solution. Yep. The electro deposition brings it together, right? Related terms of electro depositions is graphene, carbon nanotubes, nanowires, titanium dioxide, capacitance, giant magnetoresistance, lithium oxide, and nanoparticles. Nanoparticles, graphene, carbon nanotubes, all things, all words that people are getting familiar with regards to these things, right? These jabs. A product of the nuclear age, Californium 252, has found many applications in medicine and scientific research. Californium 252 is unique as a neutron source in that it provides highly concentrated flux and an extremely reliable neutron spectrum from a very small assembly. Oh, here's an interesting one. In 2021, fast neutrons from a Californium 252 source were used for wireless data transmission. Now, I don't really know that in depth, but I wonder if that's got something to do with the G5 towers and the microwaves and the radiation. That may have something to do with the, what do they call it? Electro depositions. The frequencies, right? May put together, the towers, the frequencies they're putting out, the electro depositions may put together the substances once they've gone into the body. I don't know if that explains why they need to store these things at such low temperatures or not. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about that side of things, but something for people to think about if they're that way inclined. Or maybe, you know, the fast neutrons from a Californium 252 source were used for wireless data transmission. Maybe they can also use them in direct energy weapons, chemical lasers, which they have, or monolithic microwave integrated circuits. You know, all these things they have. 21. And these are the people. All right, bear with me if it cuts out again. The reason this information is so important, because if we know what the problem is, we can fix it, right? We can find a solution. If we don't know what the problem is, we can't fix it. We can't provide a solution, okay? But these are the people responsible for bringing in the mailbox at the Melbourne University. I don't know if you know any of these people. Ask them about it. Ask them what they're doing. That's a bit later. Okay, health effects of Californium. Californium 252 is a very strong neutron emitter. It is known for being extremely radioactive. The development of nuclear technology has been accompanied by gross as well as minute releases of radioactivity into the atmosphere, the soil, the oceans, seas, and water table, showing up worldwide in animal, vegetable, and inert matter. Radiation crosses species and concentrates through the food chain, subjecting other animals and humans to its damaging effects. The greatest threat of radioactivity to life as we know it is damage to the gene pool. The genetic makeup of all living species is damage to the gene pool, the genetic makeup of all living species. Genetic damage from radiation exposure is cumulative over lifetimes and generations. Even low-dose exposures are carcinogenic after extended exposure. The current generation... Oh, hang on. Please share this if you're watching, because they cut me off now. They're saying there's only 3 people watching. The current generation, the one in utero, and all that follow may suffer cancers, immune system damage, leukemias, miscarriages, stillbirths, deformities, and fertility problems. All things that we've been talking about and saying are coming and that are being done by all the things they're giving you, right? While many of these health problems are on the rise, individuals cannot prove increase in background radiation or specific exposure as the cause. Only epidemiological evidence is scientifically acceptable to impute cause. Let's say that again, right? This is how they try and dismiss everybody. Individuals cannot prove either. Individuals cannot prove either increase in background radiation or specific exposure as the cause, such as G5 towers and things being put in India and stuff they're spraying in the sky. Yeah, so this, which is so plutonium, which is the base ingredient or the base element used to create Californium, right, is most effectively taken up by the body when it's put on the skin or breathed in, right? That's one of the most effective ways. And it gets into the lungs and it stays. All right, we must be getting into the nitty-gritty and the nuts and bolts because they really don't want this coming out. So when they're spraying in the sky, take some samples, right? Look for plutonium. Look for Californium. Look for these things in the stuff that's settling on your cars. Look for these things in the water supply. Yep. Look for these things in the injections. These are the things we need to be looking for. Plutonium, Californium, right? I love it when they really start cutting it off, because you know that's the things that they don't want you to know, right? I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. But, you know, as they say, individuals cannot prove either increase in background radiation or specific exposure as the cause. Only epidemiological evidence is scientifically acceptable to impute cause. Perhaps the most extreme outcome over time would be simply the wholesale cessation of the ability to reproduce. Radiation is a known cause of sterility. I'm going to say that again. Perhaps the most extreme outcome over time would be simply the wholesale cessation of the ability to reproduce. Wholesale cessation. Just let that sink in for a minute. Global cessation, except for the people who are aware and not exposing themselves to it. That's a big statement. That comes from lentech.com. Right? Interestingly, it says Californium in the environment. Californium does not occur naturally on Earth. All that there now has been synthesized. But this element was produced in the past when several nuclear reactors were in operation 2 billion years ago in Africa. That's what it says. Because it is used in mineral prospecting and for medical diagnosis and treatment. Right. So if it's a very strong neutron emitter and it self-replicates at, what did it say, 170 million neutrons a minute or something, I wonder if that's got something to do with the shedding or something. I don't know. I don't even know if it's in these things, right? I just looked at the information. I'm just sort of putting it together in accordance with the narrative that's happening, right? So, and they call it an actinide, right? Or an actinoid. The actinide or actinoid, since actinoid means actinium-like, CF, small cf, which means compare, in Latin confer, that's what small cf dot means. Since actinide means actinium-like, in brackets, CF, confer, humanoid or android. Well, we know that's what they're doing, right? We know that they're like, they're bringing in this android race that aligns with what's going on. And then we look at graphite oxide or graphene, right? Graphene, the bulk material spontaneously disperses in basic solutions or can be dispersed by sonication. I'm talking about this because this is what a lot of people are saying is in the jabs. Right? The bulk material spontaneously disperses. Oh, we're back on. This must be a good one too. Remember how we were saying how all us conspiracy theorists, I remember saying it, I don't remember anyone saying it before me, but that's irrelevant. We're saying that the graphene is going to be affected by the G5 towers and the frequencies. Remember us saying that, and that would cause people to act in a certain way, or it would cause certain things to happen in their bodies, right? How's about this? Talking about the graphene. The bulk material spontaneously disperses in basic solutions, right? Which means it can be taken apart and put into a solution. First, by sonication in polar solvents. to yield monomolecular sheets, known as graphene oxide. Sonication, you ask. What's sonication? Sonication is the act of applying sound energy to agitate particles in a sample for various purposes, such as the extraction of multiple compounds from plants, microalgae and seaweeds. Ultrasonic frequencies outside 20 kilohertz are usually used, leading to the process also known as ultrasonication or ultrasonication. Outside 20 kilohertz. All right, well, what's the G5 frequencies? Approximately 28 gigahertz to 39 gigahertz, we're told. Okay? What's 30 gigahertz? Let's go to the lower end of the scale. 30 gigahertz equals 30 million kilohertz, according to the converter I use. 1 gigahertz equals 1 million kilohertz. So ultrasonic frequencies outside 20 kilohertz are usually used for sonication. So I don't know what that is. That's I don't know, 50,000 or 500,000 times more, 50,000 or something, times more than required for sonification, coming from the G5 towers. That's incredible. All right, guys, I'm just going to finish it off with these two pictures. Now, we talk about, you've heard about Delta, Omicron, and we're talking about the G5 towers. Well, those there, right, they're the G5 towers. What does that say? Delta. Interesting, right? That they call the G5 towers Delta. And then we look at this picture, right? What we've got here is a couple of images from Google. This is the image of a microwave producing element or thing they use to produce microwaves. Then we look at the picture of the COV, the corona virus, right? You see the similarities of the coronavirus, yep, compared to the microwave producing things. You see that? Have a think about that. That's why Van Dyman, who studied at Cook University,